I flew to Chicago without warning and found my son dying alone in intensive care. His wife was celebrating at a luxury spa, so I left her penniless. An hour later, she lost her mind. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. If I stumble today, I'll lose my granddaughter to the cold and to a woman who mistakes cruelty for discipline. And I will not live with that kind of failure. The pilot says we're dropping into O'Hare, and my hands, scarred, freckled, good for measuring twice and cutting once, won't let go of the armrests. I'm thinking about the picture in my wallet. David laughing in a kitchen dusted with flour. Sam gap-toothed and proud. Little Lily with a crayon sunrise held high. Robert's ring catching light on our 35th anniversary. I texted David 20 minutes ago. Landing soon. Got a surprise, kiddo. And felt 10 years younger pressing send. The terminal is the same blur of crowds and glass. I remember all shine with nowhere soft to set a worry down. Families meet, arms around necks, bag straps slipping, voices bright. I call a car and give the driver the address in Lincoln Park. He doesn't know I'm coming, I say. A little proud, a little scared. She smiles in the mirror like surprises always work out. The house looks fine from the curb. White shutters, a garden that used to be his pride. But up close, the edges are tired. Roses browned at the tips. Dust on the patio furniture. The tricycle turned on its side. One wheel turning to no purpose. I press the doorbell and hear the chime echo through. Nothing. I press it again. David, I call. Old habit makes my voice gentle. It's Mom. Mail is stacked where no one wants it. Bills furred with time. Circulars no one will read. Logic, the thing I trust when feelings are a storm, begins to arrange what I'm seeing into a shape I don't like. I cup my eyes against the front window. Inside, easel in the corner. Toy cars on the coffee table, curtains drawn. Life paused. The neighbor, big hat, kind eyes, pruning shears, asks if I'm looking for the family. I haven't seen them in weeks, she says. Quiet as a church. I tell her I'm sure they're fine. My voice sounds like I'm trying on a lie that doesn't fit. I call David. It rings, then flips to voicemail, with his bright recording about leaving a message. I hang up and call again, stubborn as a loose screw. Third try. Hello. A woman's voice. Professional. Careful. This is Dr. Chen from Mercy General Hospital. Are you family? There are sentences that don't land like sentences. They land like a fall through boards. I'm his mother, I manage. Why do you have his phone? Mrs. Sullivan, your son's in our ICU, late-stage cancer. We're doing all that can be done. He's asked for you. I lean on the railing because it is the only honest thing for an old woman to do when the world tilts. My brain wants to argue. He was just tired on our last call. He's too young. I should have known. But the facts don't move. They are heavy and right where she put them. Tell me where, I say, and write the address in a hand that doesn't look like mine. The cab ride is a loud quiet. Horns, sun, strangers wrapped in their afternoons, while I go down an elevator in my chest that won't stop. Through glass and noise I measure. I inventory. I remember David's first wobbling steps on linoleum, the scrape of a bike pedal against my shin when he learned to ride, the way he tucked his head into my shoulder during storms. Architects don't pray. We check the math, adjust the plan, keep the structure standing. Mercy General's lobby is antiseptic art and whispers. I sign the clipboard, take the badge, step into air that smells like bleach and bravery. The elevator doors open to the hush of the 7th floor. Somewhere to my left, a monitor beeps at a steady, forgiving tempo. Dr. Chen meets me at the nurse's station. She's got the calm, tired look of a woman who has learned to hold families by the sentence. He's stable, she says. Treatment's been difficult. He's awake. I walk to room 712 and do something I haven't done since I laid Robert in the ground. I stop in a doorway, afraid. David is smaller, the edges of him sharper, the soft parts carved down. Tubes and tape. But when he sees me, his face lights. Mom. It's a whisper that knocks me back a decade and a second. I hold him gently. Birdlight. Careful around lines. Careful around hope. I didn't want to worry you, he says. You were still, He doesn't say grieving, but it hangs in the room like the shape of a chair where someone always sat. I thought I could handle it. I tuck the blanket more for my hands than for warmth. That's not a job you do alone. Natalie, he says, then stops himself and looks toward the window like the glass might be kinder than this conversation. Where is she? I ask. Architects like numbers, not suspicions. I prefer measurements. Meetings, he says. She said she'd be back by the weekend. I try her number. Voicemail again. Voicemail. I lay my phone down because the plastic might break if I hold it the way I want to hold her on his nightstand. His phone is charging, a habit. He's always at 20%, living on fumes and faith. I check the call history. 2 days since her last check-in, and the knot behind my sternum pulls tight. Notifications light up like they've been waiting for an audience. A red ring around a story from Natalie. I tap. Blue water, white robes, champagne catching sun. Women whose sunglasses reflect their own smiles back at them. Living my best life, the caption says. Time-stamped 90 minutes ago. Every picture is a little betrayal. In the last one, she leans into the camera. Sometimes you gotta get away from reality. Reality is down the hall in a children's oncology room, I think. And it has a name, and it used to eat PB&J on this bed with his kids. I screenshot. Not because it proves anything I don't already know. Because evidence quiets rage. I open my banking app. I don't want to. I must. 2 years ago, she asked for emergency access to my backup account. Medical bills, she said. House repairs. David doesn't need the stress, she said. The right thing in the right tone. And I wanted a reason to believe her. The ledger comes up like the inside of a machine casing. Line after line where things either belong or don't. Lakeshore Spa Resort. 18,000 luxury car service. 12,400. Michigan Avenue shopping. 4,200. Nice restaurants that serve plates like paintings to people who can afford to pretend it's food. Correlation isn't causation, but sometimes it's the closest friend you'll ever have. I call the bank. I need to revoke an authorized user. I tell the woman on the line. I give the numbers, the codes. My voice staying in its lane because anger drives worse than it thinks. Cancel every card with her name. Transfer what remains. Put alerts on every door she knows how to open. The music hums. A guard nods on his rounds. In the chapel alcove, a candle flickers. Done, Mrs. Sullivan, she says after a minute that stretches. Unauthorized user removed. Cards canceled. Alerts active. You'll get confirmations by email. Thank you, I say. And I mean it the way you mean a seatbelt. Not glamorous, essential. Back upstairs, David sleeps. He looks like someone who's been fighting a long time and is finally allowed to rest without one eye open. I sit, watch the green lines rise and fall, count breaths the way I used to count fence posts on late-night farm drives with Robert, passing time by making it measurable. My phone buzzes. Unknown number local. I step to the window and answer. What did you do? Natalie's whisper is raw panic hiding behind a thin wall of arrogance. They declined my card in front of everyone. Where are you? I ask. I don't care. I ask anyway to hear what kind of lie she thinks will work. That's not your business, old woman. You can't just... My son is in the ICU, I say. Each word level. Your husband. 2 floors below me, there's a toddler learning to walk with a pole on wheels. Reality doesn't need you to get away from it. Silence. The kind that suggests she finally suspects the math is against her. Restore my access, she says, trying stern. Or I file for divorce and take the kids. Judges love stable mothers. There it is, right on schedule. The kind of reversal that forces a pivot from rage to plan. Say that again, I tell her. Because recorded threats make for clean exhibits. You heard me. Good. My voice drops because sometimes quiet carries farther than loud. You ever try to take Sam and Lily from their father while he's in treatment? And I will spend every penny I have to set the record straight, financially, legally, and otherwise. You know what judges love more than stable mothers? Evidence, time-stamped, signed. You can't. I already did. I end the call, block that number, and breathe like a woman hauling lumber. Steady. Because steady gets you there without dropping anything heavy on your foot. I return to David's bedside and fold his hand into mine. His skin is cool. I warm it between my palms. He stirs. Mom. The word is a little boy and a grown man and a father, all layered. I'm here, I say, and I'm not going anywhere. Did you do something? He tries to smile and winces instead. I turned a valve, I say, because that's how I understand it. A bad line was siphoning your fuel. It's closed. His eyes water, not from pain but relief. I thought it was me. He whispers. I thought if I was stronger, less tired, less sick. You're allowed to be human in a body doing a hard job. I tell him, if someone calls that weakness, that's on them. He nods, and something in his face softens like a muscle released by a good chiropractor. Promise me something, he says. Tiny serious. Don't let this anger be the woman you are now. I look at him, and at the shadows the IV pole throws on the floor like a tall, faithful dog. I'll be what you need me to be, I say. I don't promise what I can't keep. I know the version of me that builds clean cases and grips stair rails a little tighter when knees ache. I know the version that wants to turn a wrench until it bites. A nurse slips in, checks numbers, smiles at me like I'm part of the equipment that's helping. When she leaves, the room is soft again. Outside the glass, the city throws constellations of light. Confirmations from the bank stack up neat as washers in a bin. Natalie's party ends with the flat thud of plastic that doesn't work. Let her explain reality to the spa company. Tomorrow I'll talk with a social worker about emergency guardianship contingencies if we need them. About paperwork that keeps children where warmth is. I'll visit the house, see what's running and what's gone dark. I'll change locks if I have to. Call a neighbor to stand in a doorway while I'm gone. I've built bridges and repaired boilers. I can manage a home under duress. For now, I sit with my son, listen to the quiet music of machines and breath, and look at his fingers. Long, elegant. The same hands that used to braid Sam's hair in crooked pigtails on school mornings. Robert used to say, "Our family bends but doesn't break." I believe him more today than most days. My knees protest when I stand. I stretch like a woman who knows what mornings feel like in older bones and what they still can do. At the window, I can see the faint outline of Lake Michigan, solemn and gray. Somewhere out there, winter air is cold enough to teach. Somewhere, a woman is saying the word discipline and meaning control. And I intend to keep my grandchildren so far from that lesson. They only know it as a story about what almost happened. A beeping spike draws my eyes to the monitor. David shifts and settles. I check the blanket, then sit back down, angled so my shoulder can be his pillow if he needs it. I hold the worn picture. Robert, me, a cake with the wrong number of candles because the little ones kept grabbing them, and I let myself feel the ache I keep in my shirt pocket. Grief doesn't go away. It learns your schedule. Tonight it sits with me and watches my son breathe. Mom? He whispers, not opening his eyes. Yes, kiddo. Thank you. You never have to thank me for doing my job. I say. I'm your mother. I don't sleep. Not really. Architects are good at waiting. We count repeaters in hallways and footsteps at shift change. Measure time by coffee cups. Fold plans until they fit in a pocket. By morning, I've got a list. Talk to Dr. Chen. Call the school. Check the house. Ring the locksmith. Pick up the kids with a bag of Honeycrisp apples and a dumb grandma joke. Text the neighbor with the hat. Remind my daughter-in-law who's boss. And keep the kind of promises you can only make when you've already started keeping them. When the new sun lifts the edge of the blinds, the world looks the same as it did yesterday to anyone not paying attention. I am paying attention. I touch David's shoulder, gentle. He opens his eyes and smiles, small but real. Let's get you warm, I say. And keep your kids warmer. If I fail, I take them into the cold. If I fail, I hand them to a woman who confuses fear with love. It's not a choice I intend to offer the day. I start the morning with a list and a pencil that doesn't squeak. Lists are anchors. They keep the boat pointed the right way when the tide decides it's the boss. Dr. Chen meets me before rounds. David signs a short stack. HIPAA release, school pickup authorization. A note that says his mother is to supervise Sam and Lily, until he says otherwise. The pen looks big in his hand. His initials look brave. "I'll be back before dinner," I tell him. "Bring them pictures," he says. And the smell of home. The school secretary recognizes my last name and my age. People make certain assumptions when they see both together. Today I'm grateful. She reads David's note once, then again with the gatekeeping part of her brain. I hand over my driver's license, the birth certificates I grabbed from the firebox, and a printed list of contacts. Architects don't rely on vibes when the safety margin is thin. "Grandma!" Sam squeals when he sees me through the glass. He runs like he used to run across kitchen tile when he heard the garage door. He lands in my chest like he never stopped. Lily is slower, a little storm cloud with a unicorn backpack. She watches, measuring if this is a trick. I kneel. "Hi, Captain," I say to her. "Mission today is apples. A bath where no one rushes you. And a bedtime story with good voices." She studies me the way small girls study tools. "What does it do? And can it be trusted? Are we in trouble?" she asks. "Never for needing a hug," I say. And her face changes in the way sky changes when weather decides to be kind. Sam's teacher hands me a manila envelope sealed with blue tape. Inside is a note in neat cursive about recent changes at home. Sam seems tired. There's a sentence that takes the air out of the hallway for a second. He asked if it's possible to do quiet indoor recess because the wind hurts. Chicago kids don't say that unless something's off. I put the envelope in my bag like you put a fragile instrument in a case. The house greets us with its mouth drawn tight. The smart thermostat blinks a locked padlock at 59 degrees. The little wheel goes nowhere. I check the basement. The water heater dial is on vacation. Like the house has been practicing misery. That's a tidy cruelty. Cheap, deniable, and invisible if you don't know where to look. Sam wraps his arms around his ribs without meaning to. "We're fixing that," I tell him. I go to the breaker panel, pull the smart thermostat off the plate, and reset it to dumb. Some systems only behave when you remove the part that thinks it's smarter than the rest. I turn the water heater to normal, wait for the burner to catch, and listen to the sound of flame, like a promise. I put my hand on the copper line and feel heat walk the pipe. Architects trust what their palms can verify. On the fridge, there's a laminated chart with neat boxes. Strikes, punishments, cold shower minutes, no snacks. The pen hanging from the magnet chain is black like a priest's shirt. Sam stares at the chart the way you look at a fire alarm you're not supposed to touch. I take it down. I fold it twice, then again, and slide it into a drawer with the warranties and the screwdriver that never fits any screw in this house. "New system," I say. "It's called We Mess Up and We Make It Right. It has warm water and snacks." Lily blinks. "What about discipline? We'll use the kind that teaches, not the kind that scares," I say. "You'll know the difference because you can still breathe." The heat pump hums with the manners of an old dog finally allowed back on the couch. Sam's shoulders come down one notch. Lily puts a hand on the vent like it's a campfire. I crack windows while the house decides to stop being a refrigerator and start being a home again. Air changes are good for rooms and women. We make food that apologizes for a week of not food. Grilled cheese with butter all the way to the edges. Tomato soup. Apple slices with cinnamon. Lily dunks her sandwich with the solemnity of a night watchman. Sam talks in bursts, then stops to look at the hallway like it might interrupt. "Are we gonna see Dad?" he asks. "Yes," I say. "We'll bring him drawings and your best jokes. Today we make this place warm. Then we bring that warmth to him. That's how systems share load." "Is Natalie coming?" she asks carefully, using her name like a test word in a lab. "People who come here will follow house rules," I say. "Rule 1 is no shouting. Rule 2 is no scaring. Rule 3 is bedtime means bedtime. What's Rule 4? Lily asks, mouthful of apple. "Grandma does dishes," I say, because she's faster at the drying rack. The bathroom mirror shows circles under small eyes. I set the tub to a temperature that says safe and luxury at the same time. Sam chooses blue bath bombs. They turn the water galaxy. Lily lines rubber ducks like cavalry. I sit on the rug and tell a story about how Robert once replaced a faucet with the wrong wrench and never forgave the wrench. The kids laugh in that loose way you only get when toes are warm. While they draw, I walk the house with a yellow legal pad. Kitchen inventory. Furnace filter size. Carbon monoxide detector test. Fail. Batteries replaced. Pass. Door locks. 2 are sloppy. 1 sticks. The back slider doesn't latch unless you sweet-talk it. I schedule a locksmith on my phone for the morning. Rekey. New deadbolts. Strike plates that actually bite. I text the neighbor with the hat. Would you stand on the sidewalk about 7:30 as a friendly witness if I need one? She replies with a thumbs up and the kind of heart made of courage. At 6:45, I send a text to Natalie because architects log inputs before they test. The kids are with me tonight at David's request. House rules. No yelling, no entry after bedtime. If you want a time to talk, text 2 options for tomorrow during daylight. The read receipt pops up, but words don't come. Sometimes silence is just a woman looking for the part of herself that used to pass for respectable. I set out pajamas that don't scratch. Sam picks the ones with the silver stars. Lily picks unicorns that look like they could do math. After Honeycrisp slices, and a book about a bear who learns to say what he feels without breaking things, I tuck them in. Sam wants the door cracked wide enough for a small moon to come through. Lily wants her truck lined up, wheels out, like a squadron ready to scramble. Will you stay? Sam asks, which is not about the hallway or the night, but the next week and the winter inside a hospital room. As long as it takes, I say, and longer if I have to. The knock comes at 7:38. Punctuality is a kind of aggression if you're the kind of woman who keeps score with clocks. I check the peephole. Natalie's jaw works under perfect makeup. Her spa weekend is leaking out of her skin. She holds out her hands like a woman auditioning for innocence. I open the door the width of my shoulder. The chain is set. The neighbor's hat is visible over the hedge like a flag. Evening, I say. Open the door, Margaret, she says, trying the tone that works on waiters and rental car clocks. This is my house. You're welcome to speak on the porch, I say. Kids are asleep. Their temperature finally isn't matching the thermostat. She moves to push the door. The chain takes it the way a well-chosen component takes load. She steps back, laughs without humor. You think a chain will stop me? I think you should read the room, I say. Specifically this one. I keep my voice low because low is heavier on the air. What did you do to the accounts? She asks too fast. They embarrassed me. Do you have any idea? Yes, I say. I know exactly what being cut off in public feels like. It feels like a correction. We can discuss bills. We can discuss plans. We will not do it at bedtime in a doorway with the volume set to theater. She bites off a reply and tries a new tack. You don't have the right to keep me out. I'm their mother. You have the right to be part of their safety, I say. You don't have the right to violate it. Tonight the house is under my supervision at David's direction. Tomorrow at 10 a social worker can be present for a conversation. If you prefer a lawyer, text a time and a name instead. I'll take the kids, she says, eyes bright with a dare. Right now. I'll carry them out past you if I have to. That would be unwise, I say, and visible, and recorded. I tilt my head toward the neighbor's hat. She lifts her phone just enough to be a fact. You sent me a threat this morning, Natalie. The kind that reads well in front of a judge. If you want to add a late-night extraction to it, you can. But I'd urge the setting of tomorrow morning and a calmer tone as your better options. I am not your enemy if you pick the right tool. I am a brick wall if you don't. For a second, I think she'll go through the wall to prove something to herself. Then she does the arithmetic. Anger minus audience minus money equals retreat. You can't just change everything, she says softer, aiming for reason like a woman throwing a rope across a river. They need consistency. They're getting it, I say. Heat is consistency. Food is consistency. Not being humiliated for being sick is consistency. You're welcome to contribute to that plan tomorrow with a witness. Tonight, you're welcome to contribute by leaving us to rest. She looks past me into the living room as if she owns the air. She sees the quilt folded over the couch arm, the nightlight glowing a small planet on the hallway wall. The absence of the laminated chart like a tooth you keep tonguing, even after the dentist pulls it. She looks smaller than the doorframe, but more dangerous because of it. "This is temporary," she says. "You're old. You'll go home. I live here. I'm old enough to know temporary can still save a life," I say. And I don't make a habit of leaving systems in failure mode. 10:07 a.m. with a social worker, Natalie. Pick that if you want to look like a woman who cares. She turns that over. She wants to call me something. She wants me to hand her the word by being sloppy. I keep my shoulders square, my hands flat on the door, my eyes quiet. She chuckles like she learned the sound from television. "You always were the neat little fix-it woman," she says. "You think labels and lists rearrange reality." "No," I say. "I think labels tell the truth about it." Something in her decides this isn't the night to break a chain. She steps back. The porch light catches the edge of her face for a flicker. I see a young woman caught between what she could have been and what she is rehearsing. "Fine," she says. "But you don't change the locks." "I change what protects the kids," I say. "If you want a copy of any key, earn it." She stares, hands twitching like they miss a glass. Then she walks to her car, which is loud in the way expensive cars can afford to be. She peels away like she wants the neighborhood to know she exists. The neighbor with the hat steps closer, slow and deliberate, like she's approaching a skittish animal. "You handled that," she says. "I didn't drop anything heavy on my foot," I say. "That's my standard these days." She smiles. "I'll be awake a while. Text if you need another hat." Inside, I stand with my back against the door and listen. The house settles. Ductwork ticks. A child coughs, then sighs that long, honest sigh that means sleep found them. I walk the perimeter like a night watchman at a plant. Check window latches. Slide the stubborn back door until it seats with a click you can trust. Lay a wedge under the frame because a simple mechanical advantage beats clever any day. I turn the thermostat down, not to punish, just to remind the heat we're in charge now. At the coffee table, I make files. Medical, school, house, legal. I write tomorrow's agenda on a card and tuck it in the flap. I set out a small tape recorder and my old pocket notebook, the one Robert teased me about for weighing as much as a sandwich. Today it feels like a tool belt around a delicate thing. My body remembers it's late. Knees speak up. Back adds a footnote. I make a nest on the couch with the quilt. Not because I can't climb the stairs, but because first nights ask you to be closer than convenience. I text David. Kids home. Bath, soup, stars on pajamas. Boundary set. We're warm. The typing dots appear, disappear, then come back. Thank you. Don't burn yourself down to keep us warm. He writes. I stare at the ceiling and let that sentence set like concrete. It's possible to build a bridge and jump off it. I have no plans to do both. Sometime after midnight, Lily pads down the hallway, hair shocky from static, clutching a truck. "Bad dream," she says. "Me too," I say, and pat the couch. She climbs in, puts her head on the map of roads printed on my t-shirt, and is asleep in 20 seconds. The pure efficiency of a child who feels safe. Later, Sam arrives with a book and a blanket and that careful politeness kids learn when adults break loud. I make a row of pillows like a motel nobody complains about because there's a grandma at the desk who knows your name. Before dawn, I wake and check the water heater again because I am who I am. The copper is warm. The house remembers how to be a place that lets shoulders drop. I heat milk for cocoa and stir in a whisper of vanilla because Robert taught me that small additions change the whole. At 7 hours, I text the social worker whose card Dr. Chen slipped me. 10 a.m., conversation at residence, mother present, grandmother as temporary caregiver. She replies with a simple confirmed. I like people who don't use more words than the job requires. The locksmith arrives at 9 war sharp in a van that rattles like a pocket full of keys. She is my kind of woman, says little, measures twice, counts screws like they matter. I authorize high-security cylinders and a peephole that shows you the truth. I text Natalie. A licensed locksmith is upgrading security at 9 a.m. This is not to exclude you. It is to protect sleeping children. You can receive a key when a social worker agrees, and house rules are accepted. 10 quarts still stands. She replies with 3 dots that never turn into language. Sometimes dots are all a woman has. New plates, the locksmith says, handing me 4 brass smiles that don't bend when you look at them. Door frames in these old houses are soft. These will give you better bite. Story of my life, I say. She doesn't ask what I mean. At 9:45, I move the trucks, and the crayons, and the legal pads off the coffee table, and set out 3 chairs. Mine, the social worker's. A third for a woman who thinks chairs owe her respect. The kids are at a neighbor's for a cartoon and toast. The house is quiet in the way a workshop is quiet before a repair that counts. I stand in the doorway for a second and touch the jamb. The wood is worn where hands have found it. A doorway is where you test what a thing is made of. Framing, nails, the choice to hold or let through. You can tell a lot about a house by its thresholds. You can tell the most about a woman by whether she storms them or knocks. This is a test in the language I speak. Load limit, consequence. The chain held, the rules held, the children slept, the house remembered warmth. I take a breath that goes all the way down and sits where resolve lives. 10 fire is coming. The door will open. The next fix might require more than a chain and a voice like a level. But I have a plan, and I have a pencil, and I have a promise in the other room, sleeping under a unicorn blanket. That's enough to step into any threshold and say, this line means something. At 10 tars on the dot, the social worker arrives with a clipboard and shoes that don't squeak. Miss Rodriguez, she says, offering a hand that measures steadiness as well as names. I like her immediately. She notices the new strike plates, the peephole, the taped card that says house rules in block letters. Natalie is 10 minutes late and performs regret in the doorway. Traffic, she says, as if the city caused her character. She clocks the upgraded locks, then me, then the empty hooks where spare keys used to wait for anyone who talked fast. Ms. Rodriguez lays out a plan like tiles. Daytime visits in public places. No overnights. No changing pickup locations without written confirmation. Calls logged on a shared app. No yelling ever. She looks at her. You agree? She smiles like a girl handed a pocket knife and told it's not a toy. Of course, I sign. She signs. Ms. Rodriguez signs. We make a copy for everyone. I'll check in after the first visit, she says, and gives us both a look that says she has seen this movie and knows the sad parts by frame number. By noon, the weather forgets where it lives. A cold front pushes down from Wisconsin and pours into the city. The neighbor in the hat texts, freeze warning tonight. Bring in the basil. I check the attic insulation, tape a draft at the back door, pull 2 space heaters from a closet, and give them a lecture about smoke alarms. The kids build a fort of quilts and chairs, then hold court inside with apples and crayons. Sam says it's like camping, but inside. Lily says, we're the warm team, and appoints me equipment manager. We take the warmth to David at 3 Espoir. He kisses wet hair and smells their heads the way fathers do, because scent is a ledger you keep in your heart. I show him the visitation plan and the upgrades. He reads with tactical calm. "Don't let her turn a rule into a dare," he says. I nod. I've worked with women who think safety margins are for other people. At 5:00, the first visit happens at the library, supervised by Stax and a children's librarian who could quiet a thunderstorm with a finger to her lips. I place myself 3 shelves away, pretending to study an atlas, while actually measuring Natalie's radius. She does fine for 40 minutes. Picture books, voices too bright, a story about a pirate who behaves. Then she tries improvisation. "Let's get cocoa," she tells them. "My car is warm. Grandma can meet us there." "No car," I say without looking up from a map of the Arctic. Coco comes to the library or not at all. I hold up a thermos I packed like a magician, revealing a backup plan. The librarian points to the sign that says "No food," and I raise an eyebrow. She studies the children's noses, studies the weather advisory taped by the door, and says exception granted for thermoses on a night like this. She smiles, but it doesn't reach the muscles that matter. "I'm not a danger, Margaret." "Good," I say. "Then sticking to the plan will be easy." At 6:00 the visit ends. She signs the log, kisses the kids, and leaves a sentence hanging in the air. "Tomorrow I'll show you the real harbor." Sam nods because he's 6 and likes anything that floats. Ms. Rodriguez on the phone a few minutes later says, "If she changes the plan, call me. If she takes them, call me and the police." I make dinner that sticks to ribs and mercy. Baked potatoes, chicken thighs, green beans with garlic. The thermostat stops at 68 and calls it victory. By 7:30, both kids are wrapped like human thermoses, asleep to the soft pinging of ductwork adjusting its expectations. The power goes out at 9:14. The neighborhood does not. Porch lights across the street stay on like little lighthouses. Our house is the lone ship in the dark. My hand knows the breaker panel before I do. Outside in the bitter air, the main is flipped. Not tripped, flipped. The lock on the box is snapped open like a promise returned to sender. I turn it back on, set a new padlock, and feel that old animal sense along my shoulders. The one that tells you a predator was here 5 minutes ago and is not through with the idea. I text Ms. Rodriguez. Power cut at the panel. Restored. Kids asleep. She replies, logging. "Keep phone loud." 10 minutes later, my phone rings. Unknown number local. I answer because that's the job. "I'm taking them," Natalie says. There's wind in her voice. I hear water lapping, the slap of waves. "She chose her battlefield. They'll be warmer with me. You're already not with them," I say. "And you don't get points for cutting heat to create a problem you can solve." "Prove it," she says. "Locks don't break themselves," I say. "People do." She laughs and hangs up. I call Ms. Rodriguez on the line she said to use when the plan became a dare. She picks up on the first ring. "If she touches that panel again," she says, "call the police. I'll notify dispatch that there's a visitation plan on file." At 10:15, the neighbor texts. "Saw her walking fast toward Fullerton. Ball cap, hands in pockets." I thank her, check the locks again, and pour coffee that tastes like a night watchman's patience. At 11:00, my phone buzzes with a message from an unknown. Sam's tablet, borrowed and brave. A picture. A deck at night. A metal rail. 2 small knees in thin pajamas. The caption typed like he's hiding his hands under a blanket. "We're by the boats. It's windy. Lily is crying. Quiet!" I don't assemble. Monroe Harbor, her Instagram from yesterday. The invoice in my banking history. Slip B8. I call 911. Tell them I fear a parental abduction in violation of a documented plan. Give slip and dock numbers. Ask for harbor patrol. Then I put on Robert's old parka because there are nights when a dead man is still the warmest thing in the house. The marina lot is a knife. The wind takes what you owe it. I park crooked and jog straighter than my knees prefer. Breath pluming, hip complaining. The dock is a lesson in friction coefficients. Wood gone slick with ice mist. Ropes singing low. A patrol boat approaches. Blue light washing the pilings. "You the grandmother?" the officer calls. I nod. "Wait at the head," he says. I nod again and keep walking because sometimes waiting is the one thing you can't do. Slip B8 sits like a mouth no one feeds. A 28-footer rocks against fenders. The name on the transom is something trying too hard. The cabin lights are on. A shadow moves. I hear a cough I know down to the alveoli. "Sam!" I call. Not loud, but with the kind of certainty that cuts through bad intent. "Don't you dare!" Natalie says, popping up like a bad idea with hands already out. "They're cold at your place. I'm fixing it. We're taking a night cruise. It's 35 degrees, I say, and I can see your breath. We're not cruising. We're complying." I take the last steps to the finger, angle my body to block her from using mass where law is thin. "Sam, honey, can you see me?" "Grandma," he whispers, and there is the dry hitch of a child working hard not to cry. "Warm team," I say. "Come on." Natalie moves to grab a wrist that isn't hers. I move faster than women my age are supposed to, and put my shoulder into her the way you set a post. Deliberate, no wind-up. She stumbles back into the cockpit and finds the opposite bench with her ribs. The Harbor Patrol's light blooms behind me. "Ma'am," the officer says to her in a voice with a citation folded into it. "Step away from the children." She shows the smile she uses on maitre d's. It looks small in the cold. "They're my kids," she says. "And you're in violation of a signed visitation plan," Ms. Rodriguez says from behind the officer. She is a woman who keeps a go bag in her trunk and a tank full of gas. "Release them now." She looks from her to the officer to me. She calculates. She does not like the answer. "This is harassment," she says quieter, proving she still knows the volume for rooms with consequences. "Let's make it math," I say. "How many minutes have they been in this wind? How many layers do they have? How many degrees until we say hypothermia instead of lesson?" I jump the small gap to the deck, because waiting for permission sometimes confuses the issue. My right knee protests like a union shop. I kneel anyway, scoop Lily into the parka like a coal. You don't want to go out and tuck Sam under my arm. They fold into me like they were designed to fit there. You don't get to take what fear isn't yours to teach, I tell Natalie low. So only she and the wind hear. She raises a hand, then remembers the light and the clipboard and lets it fall. "You people are insane," she says. But she's already stepping back, already beginning the story she'll tell that centers her as the misunderstood one. "Walk," Ms. Rodriguez says, pointing toward the gangway. The officer escorts her, not touching, close enough to mean it. Natalie backs down the steps with a look that says not finished. She pauses at the parking lot, glances toward the boats, then thinks better. The officer watches her until the tail lights are small. She turns back to me. "You did fine," she says. "Call if she returns tonight. Keep that paperwork close tomorrow. Bring it to the judge." "Copy that," I say. "Thank you for the standby. Just a long night on our side, too," she says and taps her brim. When the street is quiet, I walk the kids up the ramp, slow, heel to toe, talking about seabirds and star shapes, so we don't talk about bones that won't stop shaking. Halfway up the ramp, my foot slips. Something pulls in my lower back with a hot little snap, and my breath gets short the way it did the winter after Robert died, when walking upstairs felt like a project. I keep moving. You don't set your load down over water. In the parking lot, Ms. Rodriguez bundles the kids into her car, where the heater already thinks warm thoughts. "Hospital check?" she asks. Efficient but kind. "Urgent care in the morning. Unless we see trouble," I say. Inventorying. Lips pinking up, shivers slowing, pupils bright. No confusion beyond the kind caused by adults. They need blankets, calories, and a night without tests. She nods. "I'll file tonight. You file in the morning. We'll get a paper shield up." She looks past me at the dock. "She'll try to flip this on you." "I know," I say. So we stay boring and documented. Back at the house, the lights still burn. The new padlock holds. The neighbor meets us with a basket. Blankets, hot water bottles, socks like small furnaces. "I'll take the couch," she says. "You can barely stand up straight." "I can stand up, honest," I say, which is most of it. We make cocoa in mugs as big as first base. I stir in a little honey and a whisper of vanilla because I remember what works. Sam's hands shake less with every sip. Lily's eyes start to forget the rail and remember the unicorn blanket. We slide them into pajamas warmed in the dryer, and I sit with my back against the couch and my legs out straight, because bending at the waist is a suggestion my spine rejects. Do we have to go back to the boat? Lily asks, already half asleep. No, I say. We go back to good rules. What if she comes again? Sam whispers. Then the bright people come too, I say, picturing a judge's seal in proper ink. And the kind ones, and the ones with clipboards, and your grandma, who makes lists like other people breathe. They sleep like people who have been running and were allowed finally to stop. The neighbor takes the first watch, knitting at the dining table like she's stitching the house together. I try to stretch my back. My body votes no. There's a cold tremor in my bones that heat can't quite evict. I find 2 ibuprofen, a heating pad, and the humility to sit still. At 2 out in the morning, the quiet finds us. I text David. They're here. Harbor wind. Retrieved. Ms. Rodriguez and Harbor Patrol present. Everyone warm now. 3 dots appear. Vanish. Return. I'm sorry, he writes. You don't apologize for other people's choices. I type. Your job is to heal. Mine is to hold the door frame. At 5:00, I wake with my chin on my chest and my lower back swearing in a language I used to know from bad job sites. I test my legs like freshly poured concrete. 1, 2, holding. I check on the kids. Sam is starfished, hair everywhere, mouth open like a small opera. Lily has scooted closer in her sleep until her fingers touch his sleeve. At 6:30, Ms. Rodriguez texts, filed. Call courthouse at 8 UGAO for emergency orders. I'll meet you there. I add courthouse to the list under pediatrician check for cold exposure and photo prints from last night. Evidence isn't drama, it's mercy. When the sun licks the edge of the blinds, the house looks the same to anyone not paying attention. Inside, the furnace hums a steady note. The panel lock shines new and stubborn. My back is a cheap barometer. Sam pads in and puts his ear to my chest. I can hear your heart, he says. It's a loud one, I tell him. It's been on night shift. He climbs into my lap carefully, as if I were something that could crack. And I suppose I am. Lily arrives with her truck and the solemn duty to announce breakfast. We negotiate eggs and toast and 1 pancake shaped like a circle, because fancy shapes are for mornings when grandmas move like women instead of trestle bridges. The day is waiting with paperwork and benches and names on doors. Last night changed the angle of the case. I can feel it in the way Ms. Rodriguez writes, in the way the officer's light painted the dock, in the way Natalie looks small under the blue. That's the midpoint, the place where the structure shows itself. It's colder than anyone promised, and the wind will keep blowing. But we're not guessing at load anymore. I stand up slowly and the room tilts, then forgives me. I steady a hand on the doorway because doorways are where tests happen. Okay, I tell the house, the kids, myself. We've got miles to go, but we're moving. Outside, the air is crisp enough to teach. Inside, we are by design warm. Courthouses are factories that make orders out of mornings. By 8:00, I've got a folder with tabs. Marina, power, school, medical, and copies of everything in triplicate, because paper respects redundancy. The kids watch cartoons at the neighbors. I leave a note on the fridge that says pancakes promised and underline it twice, because some promises need to be visible from across a room. Miss Rodriguez meets me on the steps. She looks like sleep stood her up, but resolve didn't. Ex parte, she says. Temporary orders. Keep your sentences short and your eyes on the judge. Security eats my keys and spits them back. We take the elevator to Department 8, where the calendar is a deli counter that sells other people's emergencies. The clerk calls names. People step forward with their lives in manila envelopes. When they say Sullivan, my spine finds a little more vertical. The judge is the precise kind of tired that reads as experience. She listens to Ms. Rodriguez summarize the plan, to me describe the panel lock and the slip number, to a harbor patrol report that uses words I like. Observed, recorded, complied. I keep my hands folded because I'm not here to argue physics with a woman who likes wind. I'm here to show math to a person who weighs it. Natalie arrives with a lawyer who wears a tie like a weapon and shoes that announce price. Ms. Hayes, she introduces herself to the court as if the name should do the heavy lifting. She tells a story about a frightened mother and a belligerent grandmother who attacked her at a marina, about an elderly woman who inserted herself into parenting, about concerns regarding medical neglect since David's illness. She holds up a printout of a month-old attendance report and says the word truancy as if it were a diagnosis. "Officer's report," the judge asks. The clerk hands it up. She reads for a long 30 seconds. No arrest. Compliance with verbal instruction. Children released to paternal grandmother at direction of on-scene social worker. She looks at Ms. Hayes. "You left that out?" She clears her throat. My client felt pressured by the presence of multiple government agents. Many of us do, she says dryly. And I have to respect a jurist who can slide a sentence like that onto the record without scratching it. Then comes the part I didn't budget for. The judge glances at a note the clerk brings up, then peers over her glasses. "There's also a prior referral to the department from early fall," she says. "Anonymous call about kids left with neighbors during treatments and inconsistent home temperature. It was screened out with no action, but it's in the file. We're not ignoring it." My stomach does the tilt an elevator does when the counterweight changes load. Ms. Rodriguez leans in, whispers, "Different division. I'll see what I can learn. Orders," the judge says, and everyone sits a little straighter. Pending further hearing, temporary sole physical custody to the father. Paternal grandmother authorized as temporary caregiver, and to make day-to-day decisions. Mother to have supervised visitation twice weekly at the Family Visitation Center. No overnights. Compliance with the written plan. No removal from county limits. Exchanges only at the center. No home visits. No school pickups. No unilateral relocations. No harassment. No late-night visits. No interference with utilities. She taps the Harbor Patrol report. Yes, I'm spelling that out. Ms. Hayes rises to her full tailored height. "Your Honor, we'd ask the court to order that the paternal grandmother have no physical contact with my client outside supervised settings. She admits in her own declaration to using force at the marina. I admit to preventing a child from being removed in violation of a plan," I say before I can stop myself. The judge holds up a hand. "I'll include a mutual stay-away provision between the women, limited to exchanges, so no one gets creative. She says, Mrs. Sullivan, you do not physically intervene except under imminent danger. You document and you call. Is that understood?" "Yes, Your Honor," I say, because my back remembers exactly how physical intervention feels the next morning, and because paper is a lever with better mechanical advantage than shoulders. Further, the judge says, reading from the clerk's screen, referral to family services for a comprehensive assessment. Due to Ms. Rodriguez's involvement as an on-scene actor at the marina, this case is reassigned to a different social worker for findings and recommendations before the long hearing. 10 days. Department 8 retains jurisdiction. And there it is. The twist in the grain. Ms. Rodriguez gives me a look that says, I'll still be around, but bureaucracy doesn't care who you like. It cares who is assigned. We stand in the hallway with our paper shields cooling in our hands. "They help," she says, tapping the orders. "But they're not Kevlar. Expect testing." 10 days, I say. "We can do 10 days. The new social worker calls before lunch." "Mrs. Sullivan," he says. "Voice square, cadence trained. Family services. I've been assigned. When can I come by?" "Today," he says. 3 hour. I'll need to see the children, the residents, and any documentation of last night's incident." He pauses. "I'm neutral. My job is minimum sufficient safety, not optimum comfort." Translation: he's not here to make the house a home. He's here to make sure it's not a hazard. Minimum sufficient safety is a phrase that tastes like lukewarm coffee, but I can work with it. "We'll be here," I say. Before he arrives, we stack the day the way you stack lumber. Straight, tidy, no whoop. The pediatrician checks ears and lungs and says the words I want. No hypothermia, mild windburn, Fluids. Rest. She writes a note for school. We pick up extra blankets. I change the furnace filter. I staple a copy of the court orders inside the front hall closet with a big arrow that says, "Police, open this first," because forethought beats panic every day of the week. Mr. Washington arrives at 3 urn on the dot in a tie that thinks it's a personality. He's careful with his shoes on the entry mat and careful with his words, which I appreciate until I don't. He studies the thermostat like it might lie to him, checks the back slider and nods at the new strike plate, asks Sam to show him his room, and watches the way he touches the bedspread like he's checking to make sure it will still be there later. "Tell me about last night," he says to me at the dining table, pen poised. "Visitation plan in place," I say. "Power cut at the panel. Phone call threatening removal. Text from a child's tablet indicating location at Monroe Harbor. Police and Ms. Rodriguez responded. Children retrieved without further force. I slide over photos printed an hour ago. The snapped lock on the panel. The blue wash of patrol lights on the dock. The shot of the slip placard." He reviews them. "Any video?" "The marina has cameras," I say. "You can subpoena. I've requested copies." He says, which is a syllable with a lot of policy in it. He flips through the orders and the mutual stay away. "I won't be in the same room with her if I can help it," I say. I'm not bringing a shoulder to a paper job again. He writes that down. "Hospital?" he asks. "How is Mr. Sullivan?" "Stable," I say. "Treatment ongoing. He authorized me for school, medical, home." He taps the prior referral about the fall. "Screened out?" he asks. "David left the kids with a neighbor during chemo," I say. It was the right call. The heat was on a timer that got confused. I fixed it. "No action, as you said." "I said it was screened out," Mr. Washington says, correcting me by looking at the paper, not my face. Different thing. "It's a small correction in service of large carefulness." He means I keep categories. That's his job. Mine is to keep people. "You'll find this house keeps warmth now," I say. He closes his folder. "I'll observe a supervised visit at the center day after tomorrow," he says, rising. "I'll talk to school. I'll talk to Mr. Sullivan's medical team with his permission." He looks at the kids lining up plastic dinosaurs on the rug. We aim for boring compliance. Boring is a win. After he leaves, the house exhales a little. I think about how paper is a shield that works best when other people agree it's a shield. I've been in plants where the only thing between a woman and a burn was a laminated sign that said, "Do not open valve 3. It worked because everyone from the janitor to the foreman believed the sign meant something. In a home, belief takes more work. We go to the family visitation center 2 days later. It looks like a daycare married to a bank lobby. Soft chairs, cameras with good angles, a staffer who uses her indoor voice like a conductor. Natalie arrives with a new haircut that makes promises her eyes don't back up. She's charming for exactly 13 minutes. She asks Sam about school, plays blocks with Lily, nods at the staffer like she's been to enough intake interviews to hit her marks. Then she leans toward Sam and says, "Too bright. We'll do the harbor soon, just us. This place is for babies." The staffer clears her throat. "We don't make alternate plans here, Mrs. Sullivan." She recalibrates. "Of course," she says, just being enthusiastic. Mr. Washington stands behind the one-way glass and watches her the way you watch a machine you've seen malfunction. He makes a note when Natalie mentions the harbor. He makes another when Lily scoots her body closer to the staffer during a loud laugh. Minimum sufficient safety is collecting data. After Mr. Washington calls me into the side room. "Not awful," he says. "Not great. She's performative. That's common. She tested the rule. We corrected. Will you recommend supervised only? I ask. I'll recommend supervised until compliance without testing is observed, he says, which is a careful sentence that will fit on letterhead. The kids and I make pancakes twice, because that's what the fridge note and court calendars allow. They ask about boats exactly once. I tell them about a canoe I built with their father when he was 10, using glue that smelled like a woman's shed and a patience that only shows up when you sand. I do not tell them about currents or about how quick water pretends to be kind. At school, the principal calls me into her office. We got a pickup request, she says, signed by the mother. She holds up a form that looks official until you've seen a few dozen. It's dated yesterday. It lists her as sole custodial parent. She tilts her head. That didn't match what you brought us. Where did she get the form? I ask. Template online, I'd guess, she says. We called the number on your orders instead. I give her a fresh copy and a gallon of gratitude. If she comes here, I say, call the police and show them page 2. She nods. We keep page 2 in the front desk box with the EpiPens. People don't argue with boxes that hold EpiPens. The orders hold for 4 days like good glue. Then on the 5th, Ms. Hayes files a parallel motion in Department 10, claiming I assaulted her client, seeking a temporary stay-away order against me and the kids' school for the sake of peace. She does it ex parte on a day our judge is out sick. A different judge signs a temporary stay-away between me and Natalie within 100 yards of each other. Duplicative, but the way it's worded confuses the school secretary for an afternoon and almost results in the kids being released to her before the bell. The assistant principal calls me because she recognizes the shape of my worry when women in suits start making hand gestures at her receptionist. I arrive with the original order and the brand new confusion, and we triangulate. The school keeps the children, while dispatch sorts out which department outranks which for the hour. The officer on duty reads both orders with her lips moving like a woman doing math in her head. She chooses the safer interpretation, which is to honor the more restrictive one that keeps children with the caregiver of record. She does me the courtesy of giving me a look that says, "This is thin, Grandma. Don't rely on paper to be steel." Back at the house, my back chooses that exact moment to remind me of the dock with a lightning bolt to the sacrum. I sit down because it isn't a request. The kids bring me the first aid kit like I might need gauze for a back that's simply tired of being a wall. This is the pinch, I tell the ceiling, which is not listening but has heard worse. Paper against paper, department against department. Minimum safety against maximum audacity. It's not a surprise. Pinches never are, if you keep decent records. They still hurt. I call Mr. Washington. He's at another home that is louder than mine. I can hear a television and a baby that needs something nobody is giving it. Saw the filing, he says. We've already flagged it to Department 8. It will be vacated once the calendars talk to each other, but expect a day or two of static. Static isn't heat, I say. We can survive static. Stay boring, he says again. Document. Don't meet her at the school or anywhere else. Exchange is at the center only. If she shows up here, call it in. I'll push the recommendation up my chain tonight. I hang up and sit with the folders, flipping pages. Not because I like paper, but because holding it reminds me there are structures beyond one woman's temperament. I think about Robert and the way he used to press a palm to my sternum when I got wound tight, as if he could dial me back with touch alone. I remember building a bridge once in a winter that thought it was permanent. We hung flares on the scaffolding, not to light the work, but to warn anyone drifting near. There's a structure here now. Respect distances. At bedtime, Sam asks if the new papers mean the old papers don't matter. They matter, I say. They just need their friends with stamps to show up and stand next to them. That's a funny picture, he says, grinning for the first time all day. Papers with friends. Friendship is a force multiplier, I say, and he rolls his eyes the way David did when he was 8 and had recently discovered my metaphors. I email scans to Ms. Rodriguez because even if she isn't our assigned worker anymore, she's still the kind who shows up in parking lots with a clipboard when Knight gets ideas. She replies with a single line. I'm not in your chain, but I'm in your corner. That's not a thing a court can order, which is why it's worth more than most orders. In the morning, we go to the center again. Natalie is on time and chooses good behavior like a woman choosing a shirt once someone told her which one. She reads a book about penguins. She doesn't mention boats. She looks at me exactly once through the glass and does that little smile that says, I'm still here. I don't smile back. I label what I see and write it down. Mr. Washington hands me a draft of his recommendation before the long hearing. Supervised visits to continue, it says. No unsupervised contact until verified compliance, with plan for 4 consecutive visits. All exchanges at the center. Mother to complete a parenting class focused on non-coercive discipline and a short course on cold weather safety. The last line, a bureaucrat's dry joke that makes me like him better. Grandmother to refrain from physical confrontation. School pickups restricted to authorized caregiver. Utilities tampering. Noted and under investigation. Strong, I say. Strong as paper gets, he says. Be ready for pushback. She'll call this punitive. The standard is safety, not satisfaction. We leave the center into air that has finally remembered the city it's in. The cold has started packing its bag. The sun tries a little sincerity. On the sidewalk, Sam takes my hand and squeezes twice. Our family code for I'm here. Lily stomps in a leaf pile someone forgot to have an opinion about for a minute. Nobody is filing anything anywhere. At home, I tape Mr. Washington's draft to the inside of the closet door, next to the orders that already live there. I put fresh batteries in the flashlight that hangs by the panel. I put the neighbor's knitting basket on the entry bench where her hat sits like a badge. Paper, light, witness, shields. The long hearing is in 3 days. The parts are on the table. Reports, logs, appointments kept. Thermostats that do what they're told. The pinch did what pinches do. It showed weak points. My back, the school's front desk, the gap between departments. We've shored them as best we can with brass plates and phone calls and jokes about pancake circles. It'll never be perfect. Minimum sufficient safety isn't a poem. It's a checklist. But checklists keep airplanes in the sky and bridges standing over winters mean enough to test them. After dinner, Sam wants to draw. He makes a picture of a house with too many door locks, and then erases one. We don't need that one anymore, he says. We have the nice lady with the clipboard. We have a lot of nice people with clipboards, I say. Some of them even talk to each other. He draws a little paper with arms and legs holding hands with another paper. Friends, he says, and tapes it to the fridge under pancakes promised. When the kids are down, I sit at the table and write my statement for the hearing in block letters, because even I get nervous and block letters don't. I keep it boring. Dates, times, temperatures, names. I don't tell the judge about how my back felt on the dock, or how the air at the marina sounded like a warning. I tell the judge about locks and logs, and the difference between discipline and control demonstrated. I tell her about the way Sam slept the first warm night. Starfished and honest. And I don't write the word starfished because poetry isn't admissible evidence, but I let it live in the margins of me anyway. Before bed, I text David. Orders in place. Mr. Washington recommending supervised. Small round of paper confusion handled. Kids okay? She answers. I hate that my sickness made a place for all this. I write back. Your sickness made a place for love to be obvious. The rest is noise we're insulating against. He sends a heart. It lands like a nail set flush. I check the panel. The lock is still closed. I check the doors. The new plates bite. I check the kids and count their breaths, because counting is the oldest prayer I know. Then I lie down with Robert's parka folded at my feet, because superstition likes souvenirs. Paper shields aren't heavy. You can carry a stack in one hand. They won't stop a storm by themselves, but held right, backed by witnesses, lit by steady bulbs and small kindnesses, they turn gusts into wind you can lean into. 3 more days, then a longer order, then something like a path. If the path bends, we bend. If it pinches, we hold where it holds and reinforce where it doesn't. That's not bravery. That's maintenance. Maintenance keeps systems alive. I set the pencil on the table where morning will find it, and whisper to the sleeping house the only benediction I trust. Stay warm and mean it. The long hearing is tomorrow. I spend the evening doing what nervous women do when we refuse the word nervous. I label folders, sharpen pencils, lay out clothes that won't squeak, and tape fresh copies of the orders inside the hall closet where a flashlight and common sense live. At 8:40 p.m., the doorbell rings. Not a jab. 2 firm presses, spaced like someone who practices authority. Through the peephole, a khaki uniform, a calm face, a black beanie under the brim because the cold hasn't finished leaving town. Sheriff's Department, she says when I open to the chain. Evening, ma'am. Behind her, 10 feet back, a woman-shaped problem with a fresh haircut rocks on her heels. Natalie keeps her hands in her pockets like she's holding marbles she intends to throw. What can I do for you, deputy? I ask, voice set to low. She shows me paper in a plastic sleeve. Service of a temporary stay-away order signed earlier today, she says. Between you and Mrs. Sullivan. Also a request for a civil standby so she can collect personal property. Work laptop, clothes. No child exchange, no custody enforcement. She meets my eyes so I'll hear that last part. Understood, I say. I'll take service. I slide a clipboard through the gap with my driver's license on top. Architects like clean handoffs. I scan the order. It's the Department 10 special. Duplicative distance rules phrased just sloppily enough to make a school secretary blink. I initial the service box, date it, and pass the sleeve back. You're served, the deputy says quietly. Mutual stay-away between you and her to avoid contested spaces. Doesn't change custody. Doesn't give her entry. Natalie steps forward, smile on. Deputy, she's obstructing my access to my own home. The deputy doesn't turn around. This is the children's residence. Your orders say no home visits. Tonight is a standby for property retrieval only. Then to me. Ma'am, you willing to bag up what's on the list while I wait on the porch? Yes, I say. Kids are asleep. I'll keep the chain set. You'll have inventory. I look past the deputy to Natalie. You don't come over the threshold. You don't say a word through this door to a sleeping child. Something in her jaw works, then smooths. Whatever you say, Margaret, she says loudly enough for the street to hear. I gather what any decent inventory would. A laptop with greasy fingerprints. A stack of blouses still wrinkled from the bag she never unpacked. A pair of boots that will let in water. A ridiculous cashmere coat that thinks it's a personality. No passports, no birth certificates, no documents of any kind. Each item gets a line on a yellow pad and a check mark when it goes into a contractor bag. I show the list to the deputy through the gap. She checks the bag with a flashlight and signs my copy. Clean handoff. Anything else? I ask. Natalie leans toward the crack in the door. You think paper keeps me away from my kids? She says, soft and contemptuous. The dangerous register. I think behavior does, I say. Paper just remembers it. The deputy clears her throat. Ladies, she says, even though only one of us is behaving like one. We're done, Mrs. Sullivan. You have what you requested. Mrs. Sullivan, she turns to Natalie. Depart the property. Natalie backs down the steps with a look that says not finished. She pauses at the hedges, glances toward the side yard, then thinks better. The deputy watches her until the tail lights are small. She turns back to me. You did fine, she says. Call if she returns tonight. Keep that paperwork close tomorrow. Bring it to the judge. Copy that, I say. Thank you for the standby. Just a long night on our side, too, she says and taps her brim. When the street is quiet, I walk the perimeter with a slow, precise gait my physical therapist would applaud. Latches seated, new plates biting, closet light on, orders visible. On a whim that isn't a whim, I take a photo of the taped orders with the phone's timestamp front and center. Paper remembers. Pictures remember the paper. At 10:30, the power dips. Not out just a brief brown note like a cheap amplifier, and returns. I step outside with the flashlight and meet my new padlock with a hand on cold steel. Closed. No marks. My back relaxes one notch. Inside, the refrigerator hums like a polite guest. I sit at the table to add a short paragraph to my declaration. Service accomplished at 2040 hours. Civil standby conducted. No entry granted. Inventory logged. I consider adding the part where she leaned toward the crack with that voice. But tone is hard to prove. I stick to nouns and times. I'm pouring hot water over a tea bag I don't want when my phone buzzes. David, you okay? Yes, I tell him. Served. No entry. Kids asleep. He writes back. Promise me we keep choosing steady over angry. I press a palm to the table and answer what I can keep. Yes. Steady wins hearings. At midnight, I move to the couch. My back lectures in detail about 28-foot cockpits and women who won't step aside. I put the heating pad under the scolded muscle and let it talk itself out. Somewhere around 2 Sam appears, hair like a small storm, eyes big in the low light. I dream the door fell over. He whispers, "It didn't," I say. I leaned on it. He rests his ear against my chest. I can hear the leaning, he says, and falls asleep with the ease of the well-defended. The morning arrives with courthouse breath. Coffee, old carpet, new paper. Mr. Washington meets me in the hallway outside Department 8. He has a clean copy of his recommendation now on letterhead. I added last night's service, he says. Also a note about brownouts at residences with contested panels. It's a thing. You people have a name for everything. I say, that's how we keep track, he says, not smiling. Inside, the judge takes the bench with a stack of pages that look like they know us. She listens to Mr. Washington. She listens to me. She listens to Ms. Hayes talk in whole paragraphs about elder interference, power imbalances, and character assassination through bureaucratic collusion. She asks the deputy who did the standby to speak. She does so in 12 sentences that fit in a small box and feel like the truth. Orders, she says, and the calendar stops breathing for a second. Temporary sole physical custody to the father confirmed. Paternal grandmother authorized to provide day-to-day care under that authority. Mother, supervised visitation at the Family Visitation Center twice weekly to continue. Compliance with the plan to be observed for 4 consecutive visits before any modification. Mother will enroll in and complete a 6-week parenting course focused on non-coercive discipline and a separate course on anger management. No contact with the residents except for law enforcement scheduled civil. Standbys with 24 hours notice and inventories no later than 7 p.m. No tampering with utilities. No school pickups unless and until modified by this court. She turns to me. Mrs. Sullivan, the mutual stay-away remains in effect between you and Mrs. Sullivan, limited to exchanges and residences. You will not physically intervene except under imminent harm. You will call and document. Do not give the other side a story to sell. Yes, Your Honor, I say. The choice sits there. Be the wall or be the record. I choose the record. Ms. Hayes rises to ask for overnight visits. The judge doesn't even pretend to entertain it. Denied, she says. You may seek modification after completion of programming and documented compliance. Natalie stands, flush working up her neck like a thermostat that doesn't stop where it should. Your Honor, she starts. She lifts a hand, and the room obeys. Mrs. Sullivan, one more attempt to argue after orders, and I will find you in contempt. She lowers her voice. Get compliant. Show your children boring steadiness. That is how you see more of them. She sits. The chair creaks. It's the only thing in the room that gets to make noise. Outside on the courthouse steps, she drifts within the edge of the 100-yard bubble and tests it with a look. For a second, I feel the old rage come up the stairs like a woman who missed her stop. My back remembers the dock. My chest remembers Sam's ear. I put a hand on the railing, wood worn where worry has polished it, and I choose the quieter thing. "Good luck with your classes," I say, and turn away before the sentence can be a dare. She mutters something about old women and wrenches, loud enough to be brave, quiet enough to pass for air. I keep walking. Mr. Washington falls into step. "Steady," he says. "Trying," I say. We spend the afternoon cleaning the house the way you make a place ready to hold relief. Filters changed, flashlight charged, kid art rehung at kid height. A new copy of the orders slid into the front closet with a fresh arrow that says, "Police." Open this first. I make soup that tastes like the word enough. Potatoes, carrots, a rotisserie chicken stripped down to honest labor, a handful of parsley because Robert believed green things tell the body to be brave. At dinner, the kids ask if boats exist in stories we're allowed to read. "Sure," I say. "We just choose the ones with paddles and life vests." "Grandma," Sam says between spoonfuls. "What's court?" "A room where people agree on what the rules mean," I say, "and where we promise to follow them in the same way every time." "Like bedtime?" Lily asks. "Exactly," I say. "Like bedtime." When they're down, I sit with David at the hospital. The order's in a clean envelope on his tray table, his hand in mine. He reads the judge's signature like it might warm the bed a degree. "You didn't burn down," he says. I considered it, I admit. Then I remembered water heaters and children's ears. He laughs the kind of laugh that doesn't cost breath. "You picked the right tool," he says. That's all I ever wanted. Someone to pick the right tool. On my way home, I buy a porch light bulb with a warmer color temperature than the one we've got. It's a small choice. It will make the night outside look slightly less like a dare. Back at the house, the neighbor's hat is on the bench next to her knitting basket. There's a note. She cruised past twice. Didn't stop. Orders work better when you have a street, too. I tape her note to the inside of the closet door next to the others. Paper remembers people. People remember paper. When I finally lie down, the house settles like a ship that found the right water. My back murmurs less. The thermostat hums like an appliance doing exactly what it's told. The night is still night, but it's not a threat. It's just the part of the day where we can see which lights we left on purpose. Tomorrow isn't solved. It's just measurable. That's enough for a woman who counts breaths and screws, and the number of ways anger can ruin a plan. Tonight I choose steadiness again, and the choosing feels like a muscle that will hold. I set the pencil for morning. Touch the door frame like a woman thanks a beam, and say the only benediction I trust to carry. Stay warm and mean it. 2 weeks after the long hearing, the house begins to sound like itself. The furnace hums a work song. The fridge clicks and settles. The porch light comes on at dusk without acting like a lighthouse audition. Routines find their grooves the way water finds a channel, once you stop kicking at it. We live in Tuesdays now. Not the big days with stamps and signatures, just the repeatables. Sam's backpack hangs on its hook like it belongs to the wall. Lily's shoes line up toe-to-toe with the permanence of small soldiers. I keep the paper shields taped inside the hall closet. Orders, recommendations, the little note from the neighbor with the hat. Less because I need to show anyone, and more because it reminds me that memory is a tool you can find in the same place every time. David comes home on a Sunday to try a week. He looks like a weather map that learned some new symbols, but his smile is easier in our kitchen. Dr. Chen says the word responding with cautious optimism, and I decide optimism is a thing the thermostat can hold at 68, just as well as air. We set the spare room with the soft quilt, the one Robert pieced from shirts we wore to break in the deck chairs. The kids put their drawings on the dresser. A house with a chimney that looks like a trumpet, a stick figure family that includes 2 small rectangles labeled orders, holding hands with a smiley clipboard. David laughs until he has to sit down. "You made bureaucracy cute," he tells them. "That's a superpower. At breakfast Monday, I flip pancakes in circles because that's all anyone asked for." Lily says like a foreman. Quality control approves. Sam tells a joke he heard at school that doesn't quite land, then makes it land by laughing first. We walk to school under a sky that finally remembers what Chicago is supposed to do in March. On the way back, David's hand finds my sleeve. "You kept them warm," he says. "I kept the thermostats honest," I say. "You kept them warm." At the Family Visitation Center, Boring shows up and asks to be recognized. Natalie has made 2 sessions in a row without testing the plan. She reads about penguins again and nobody mentions boats. The staffer with the conductor's finger gives her a nod that means, "See how easy this is when you treat rules like guardrails instead of suggestions." Mr. Washington stands behind the glass, neutral as a level, and checks another box that says no incidents. Natalie's texts shift from jabs to logistics. "Running 10 late. Can we extend to 5:10? Then parenting class scheduled Wednesday, 7 p.m. Then once, the shortest thing she sent me in months. Thanks for the standby list." I stare at that one longer than it deserves. There are apologies she owes that I'll never collect. You can't spend gratitude, you have to invoice. It arrives or it doesn't. Still, a hinge moved half a degree. Doors work better when hinges move. The new social worker closes our assessment with language that sounds like a manual. Minimum sufficient safety present. Recommend continuation of current plan. Paternal grandmother demonstrating protective capacities. Mother making partial progress in programming. It's not poetry. It's a checklist with a pulse. I sign my copy and put it in the closet next to the arrow that says, "Police. Open this first." Then I add a smaller arrow that says, "Grandma. Breathe before the call." The kids think that one is funny. I do too. There are still pinches. The car doesn't like the way I drive up the hill and tells me with a light that means this will be expensive soon. The school sends home a fundraiser form asking for 24 cupcakes shaped like sea creatures. We settle for circles with blue sprinkles and call them minimalist jellyfish. My back holds most days and complains others. I learn the art of sitting first and then lifting. Like a woman whose body has joined the committee that plans wisdom, one evening, I'm elbow deep in a dishwasher that has decided to privilege aesthetics over function when Sam asks from the doorway, "What happens if we don't need all the locks one day?" "Then we keep the ones that make sense," I say, wrestling a spray arm that wants to be dramatic. And we put the extras in a box labeled just in case. We don't throw out what kept us safe. We just let the house teach us what it needs. He thinks about that like a small engineer. "Can we relabel the chart?" he asks, pointing to the magnet on the fridge where House Rules lives. I want Rule 4 to be we tell the truth even when our voice wobbles. "Approved," I say, and hand him the marker. On Thursday, the neighbor with the hat brings over a plant that looks indestructible and a pie that isn't. "For the porch," she says, setting the plant next to the new bulb that casts a kinder circle. "And for the women in the house who forget to feed themselves when they're double-checking panel locks. I'm getting better at feeding," I say. "I started seasoning things on purpose." "You season the porch, too," she says, nodding at the light. "It says you can stop. You're home." That night, David sits at the table and pays 3 bills without needing a nap, which counts as a parade in our current calendar. He looks up from the laptop. "I know you hate when I apologize for things that aren't mine," he says. "So I won't. I'll just say thank you for building a world where my kids got to keep being kids." "You and I built it," I say. "Half my tools are your old jam jars." He smiles. "Robert would have said we're just maintaining what was always meant to be." He was a big fan of maintenance, I say. "And of jam." The judge sets a review hearing 3 months out. Paper likes to be revisited. I pencil it in, and then write it in ink because the practice of both pleases me. Mr. Washington's last call ends with "You know where to find me," if anything flares. I tell him I hope his days are full of boring. "Boring is how I make it home for dinner," he says. And I decide to stop making jokes about bureaucrats for a while. On a Tuesday, the way these things like to land, I catch Natalie in the parking lot of the center as we pass each other with distance to spare. She holds up her phone so I know she's messaging the staff, not angling for conversation. Then impulsively she says without moving closer, "The boy laughed today." Not the tight one. The other one. "I heard," I say. They have 2 laughs. She nods, eyes cutting sideways like she's not sure whether permission extends to this much humanity. I'm trying, she says. Keep at it, I say. That's the job. She pockets her hands. Looks like she might say sorry, and decides the ground's not ready for that seed. She walks away at the proper angle. I stand there a second longer because it's hard to retool a woman's gut habits. You don't watch a machine learn and not take note. The chain stays on the door, but I stop touching it twice before bed. The habit breaks itself like a fever you didn't realize you had until the sweat cools. I still check the panel lock. Some superstitions are good engineering, but I do it with the calm of a woman confirming a routine, not suspecting a trespass. When David has the strength, he reads to the kids at bedtime. His voice is smaller than it was, but it knows where to put the warmth in a sentence. And the sentences know they're lucky to be held that way. On nights he can't, I read. We take turns like people who understand load sharing. Lily likes the story about the bear who learns to say, I'm mad without breaking anything. Sam wants the one about a city that keeps everyone warm by making the rules clear and the soup hot. I have a soft spot for the book with the map at the end, the one that shows you where you've been so it feels like you meant it. On a Saturday, we build a birdhouse on the porch. I pre-drill. Lily drives screws with her tongue stuck out for accuracy. Sam paints a roof the color of bravery. We hang it under the eave where the new bulb glows. A small brown bird comes by and makes an inspection, hopping like a supervisor. Minimum sufficient safety, I tell it. And a little extra. David takes a picture and texts it to Ms. Rodriguez with 3 words. Warm house achieved. Ms. Rodriguez sends back a tiny emoji of a clipboard and a heart. Mr. Washington doesn't do emojis. He writes noted, and I grin like a woman who has finally understood that a certain kind of austerity is its own affection. Once late, I wake to a dream about the marina, railings with teeth, wind that steals nouns. I go to the hallway and look at the taped papers and the arrow and the neighbor's note and my own scribble about breathing. I stand there long enough for the dream to chew itself out and leave. On my way back to the couch, I pass the kids' room. 2 small shapes rise and fall under dinosaurs and stars. I count breaths, because the oldest prayer still works. Spring creeps in. The basil survives the cold snap and then some. The locksmith's plates never loosen. The chain stays. The porch light catches moths, and the occasional mother coming home late from supervised visits, who parks and sits and doesn't knock. And that's allowed. People can sit with their thoughts in their own cars. It's one of the safer places for thoughts. On a Tuesday night, ordinary by design, the kids fall asleep in 7 minutes flat. The dishwasher runs without complaint. The thermostat says a number and means it. I sit on the steps with the porch light casting its warm circle and think about how we measure success now. Court orders didn't fix a woman. They fixed a context. Paper didn't love anyone. It gave love a corridor to walk down without getting shoved. I text Dr. Chen a thank you for writing 3 sentences to the court that landed like bolts. I text the neighbor with the hat a picture of the birdhouse's first tenant. I text David from the bottom of the stairs so I don't have to whisper up them. Need anything? He texts back. Water and that joke you tell about the wrench. When I bring the water, he takes my hand. You found the steady, he says. Even when you were mad. I remembered what anger costs in replacement parts, I say. He smiles. Tired and beautiful in a way that has nothing to do with health and everything to do with presence. Keep the porch light on, he says. For the good coming and for the bad that needs to see it isn't welcome. I already set the timer, I say. The bulb throws a steady circle across the threshold like a coin on a table. It doesn't look heroic. It looks like maintenance. That's the point. Later, when the house is as quiet as a held breath, I write a last note for the inside of the closet. Not a rule, not a contact number, just a line. We bend, we don't break. If you're reading this, you're part of that. I shut the door gently so the papers don't flutter. I check the panel lock with 2 fingers out of habit and hope. I pour water into the basil and think about Robert's way of blessing a room by touching the door frame as he left it. I touch this one, then turn off the hall light and leave the porch one on. Warm, not glaring. A small, honest sun for a square of concrete, and the people who cross it. The street is ordinary. The night is just night. The boat is someone else's problem. The children are in their beds under rules that feel like arms. The house is a machine for holding warmth, and I am a woman who understands machines and also, finally, people. That's enough. Stay warm. I tell the room that holds everything I have left, and everything I meant to return to, and mean it. The house answers the way a good system does, by doing its job so quietly. You only notice when you stop to listen. I listen, then I sleep. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.